Now, Suella Braverman, lots of controversy. She's under fire again after she claimed that people living in tents have made a lifestyle choice, not one to shy away from saying what she really thinks. The Home Secretary wants to stop the nuisance and distress caused by people sleeping on the streets in tents. So should the government ban tents in cities? Joining me now is homeless charity founder and Manchester Mayoral candidate Nick Buckley MBE. Nick, when you saw this headline, what did you think?
I've been saying this for 2 decades. Rough sleeping's very complicated. We could spend the next 6 hours digging deep into rough sleeping, but we haven't got the time. For someone who sat down with hundreds of people living on the streets in Manchester City Centre, some of them, it is a lifestyle choice. Do they really want to be there? Well, the answer is no. But the reason why they're there and have made that choice is because the services that councils offer are not good enough. That's the real question. How bad are those services if you'd rather live in a tent on a street? That's the question.
Do you think that Suella Braverman should have made it more clear in what she said that there should be a focus on improving services and improving the lives of those people who end up on the streets? Do you think it was perhaps a little bit, what's the word, sounded rather callous, perhaps, to focus on the tents?
Yeah, I mean, everything can be said slightly better. And, you know, she's fallen into that trap. So she's got the wrong headlines for what she was trying to do. Everything we do should be getting people off the streets. And her point really is, why are we giving people tents to stay on the streets when the aim should be getting them off the streets? And some of the charities who are working in this sector, we need to ask them some serious questions. And one of the questions is, your aim is not to end rough sleeping. Your aim is to carry on supporting and working with rough sleepers, because that's what pays your wages, that's what pays your pension. And we've set up the incentives for many of these agencies and many of these charities. We've set up their incentives never to solve the problem. Why would you solve the problem that's paying your bills?
Nick, now, to be fair to Suella Braverman, she was quite specific-ish in what she said. She said that many of the people are from abroad and are choosing to live in tents in this country. I think she was suggesting that, I don't know, people move here in order to then live in tents on our streets. Have you seen that? Is that a reality in this country?
I haven't seen that in Manchester City Centre. I mean, there is foreign people living on the streets. I wouldn't say they've come here to live on the streets. That isn't the case, but let's say it is the case. Well, why don't we deport them? If you haven't got the financial resources to make a living in the UK, then you should be deported from where you came from. That's the end of that situation. The biggest crime are the British citizens living on the streets, not necessarily the foreigners.
Thank you very much indeed. Nick Buckley MBE there. Thank you very much indeed for your time this afternoon. I'll bring my panel on this one. Obviously, it's a very sensitive subject. Ben, I'll start with you. What did you make of Suella Braverman's comments there? Do you think she was spot on, or was she being callous?
Well, a senior Conservative Party member said to me the other day, one of the problems that Suella's got is she takes the path of most resistance in the way that she espouses her arguments. But in defence of Suella, I would say there are a lot of very difficult subjects which need to be tackled, and she is now at least... she's very short on action, the government's very short on action, but she is at least revealing the problems, and that's the first step towards solving the problems. And we don't want tents, obviously, on our streets. It's a sign of a failing society if we've got lots of people sleeping rough and intense. And it's interesting that Nick Buckley presented it as a choice, effectively, between a broken public sector looking after you or sleeping in a tent. I would say it's much more fundamental than that. What we need is these people becoming valuable participants in society. I know later on, I think we're going to be talking about the number of people claiming benefits, and it's part of the same kind of problem. We need people getting back into work, having the skill sets that they need in order to get into work, having the confidence to go back to work, making money out of work. And banning tents is a regulatory legal approach. It's a sledgehammer to solve the problem. What you need is social reform, taxation reform, education to really get rid of the problem into the long term.
Yes, Paul, surely we need to tackle homelessness rather than the tents, which is a symptom of the problem. If we look at, there's been report after report after report of people who have had homes, who have been living in private rented accommodation, for example, who find themselves on the streets without a home because rents are just going up so astronomically.
Exactly, and I'm uneasy about the proposal. Look, I mean, it is unsightly. Some of our town centres, our high streets, it is unsightly to see some of these scenes. But what would be to stop Suella Braverman from saying, OK, this week it's tents, we're going to stop people having the protection of tents against the elements. Next week it's going to be coats or something. You know, if you're a charity...
You can't ban a coat.
Well, this is exactly my point. But if you can ban a tent, then perhaps you could ban a coat.
I think there are established principles to ban a tent. You know, planning reasons, for example.
Well, OK, but I mean, the government can find a way to enact new legislation if it so decides. We know that. But in principle, I don't particularly see the difference between saying the tent should be banned, something that provides protection and warmth to a homeless person, and saying, well, if a charity donates warm clothing, that should be banned as well. That's the sort of slippery slope.
I mean, not very far from here, there are people living in tents on a main road, essentially, around a roundabout on a main road. I don't believe anyone is choosing, or not many people are actively choosing that as a lifestyle. I think that is very much fair to say.